And good morning, everyone, and welcome to this edition of CHAT CANNA. It's Thursday, and just about anywhere you were in the Midwest yesterday, last night, a giant wave of a thunderstorm went across, and we have a yard full of water here. But today we have an exciting guest on. The company is from Israel, but he is in northern Canada, about halfway between Calgary and Edmonton, a town called Red Deer, but then you got to go a ways away from that. That is where he's making his home, but he is covering all of North America for a company called Gemmacert. My, of course, co-host today is here, Casey Hammer. Say hi, Casey.
Hello.
And let's welcome him into the show here. His name is Emilio, and we will get him with us. There he is. And he has a magic device with him, and he is going to tell us all about how it helps hemp growers all around the world. Good morning, Emilio. Oh, got to push another button.
You're on mute.
There we go. How about good morning, Emilio?
Good morning, CHAT CANNA family. It is a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the invite.
Well, great. It's great to have you here. We have known each other, I guess, about 6, 7, I don't even know. Maybe it's been a year. Time goes so fast.
Over a year.
Over a year. See, time goes so fast as we're having fun in this new industry called hemp. And we hooked up because, of course, the federal government in the United States is quite adamant about the fact that we must stay under certain levels of THC. And if we don't do that, they want to see us destroy our crops. And that is a developing chemical that is in our crops as they are growing. And we need some way to find that out. There's a couple of ways to do that. One of them, of course, is to take samples and put them in a postal box and send them away to a testing lab and getting those results back. But that can be quite expensive if you're doing that every week. And then if you have 2 varieties, you have to do it 2 times. One other way that you might be able to do that, well, we're going to find out today, because Emilio, that is not a beer keg sitting in front of you there. What have you got there with you?
This is not a beer keg. This is a machine that allows you to test your hemp flowers for total THC and total CBD. It basically allows for the measurement of the composition of each individual flower, or in separate cases, also biomass with a different adapter that goes in here, as well as extract.
So it can do 3 different kinds of tests. And then when you put it in the machine, do you lose that? I mean, when I send it away to a testing laboratory, whatever I sent is gone to me.
Exactly. With the difference about this machine is that it does not harm your sample. So you can test it. It takes about 5 minutes. You get the result to a smartphone app, and then the flower is intact, and you can still use it. You can either use it for commercial purposes, or you can send it off to the lab for additional testing.
So I can do an A/B test on exactly the same sample then. I can run the sample in the machine, and I can exactly send that sample away and see what somebody else thinks that particular bud is. So I'm not doing a kind of an A, maybe B comparison to see how both sides are saying, well, this sample tests at X.
Exactly. So, for instance, if you would like to answer the question of how does my storage practices affect the composition of a flower, you can actually test the same flower over a period of 2, 3, 4 months.
Wow.
And graph out the results. And you can see if the CBD is going up or if it's going down.
And in your tests and your experience, what should we be expecting? Will the CBD rise, or will we start losing after some time?
It will rise a little bit during drying and curing, because the internal moisture of the flowers will start coming out, and that will affect the structure of the trichomes. But as soon as it's dry, it's the opposite. It starts degrading, and the cannabinoid metabolites transform into different molecules. So, for instance, CBC can transform into CBD. Sorry.
So it's like a fine wine. Then there's a peak time. And after that time, it's the wine that you remember from 1979.
Exactly.
So, you wouldn't, you're too young. You don't remember 1979, but I remember, even Casey doesn't remember the
I remember all things here.
Oh, that's right. All things.
Oh,
so,
and I can say, I can attest to this. I've done hundreds of tests now, and I can, really in growing early on, I mean, what is the concerns? It's like, oh, well, the first thing you want to kind of avoid is everything being taken from you, right? Just bulldozed, burned, or whatever. And Gemmacert has really been a blessing to be able to just take something from the field, dry it out a little bit, and then shove it through a testing procedure where you don't have to wait a week. You don't have to send it into a lab or have that association with an organization that can test it for you, because you can kind of just monitor your crop over time. I totally stand for it. It's one of the first anxieties that keeps the farmer of hemp up at night right now. So.
Well, and especially because in the field, of course, we know that it's always changing, because these are chemicals that start, you can find them in the plants when they're very, very young, but of course in the buds and the leaves around the buds, which are what are collected if somebody is in the CBD and oil business. But certainly, even if you are growing hemp for the industrial hemp for seed, or for the silk to make blue jeans and the other paper products, or for the herd, that's what you see around our picture here. That's some of that. You got to make sure that you're under the legal limits. And so here's something that can be telling you, hey guys, it's time to get the testers in here and get your certification so that your stuff is clear to enter the industrial stream or the commercial stream, and know that it's time, because a couple of weeks can make a big difference.
Exactly. So there are two ways that farmers, hemp farmers, are using the device to prevent their crops from going hot. The first one is testing while the buds are forming, to measure how the cannabinoid concentration is increasing or decreasing or changing. The second way is doing the same, but after what you expected it to be the harvest date. The purpose of this is because most often than not, there are some hemp plants that can go hot. What this machine enables you to determine is when the THC that was past the legal limit is coming back down. So you can schedule, one, a testing session, and two, you can schedule your harvest as well, to optimize both for peak cannabinoids, especially CBD, and to prevent the THC from being over the legal threshold.
And of course, something we just don't want, like Casey said, and there's so many tragedies that farmers can hit where, a tornado might take a crop or hail takes a crop. But the last thing we want is to have a physical person having to come in and destroy your babies, because you really, yesterday we had a gentleman on from out in Western North Dakota. Yeah, it's his first year with hemp, and he didn't realize that he was going to be so up close and personal with each of the plants. It isn't just like you plant wheat and there's a million bazillion kernels of wheat across the field. With hemp, you're kind of in touch with almost each plant of the 250 that he had in one field and 200 and almost 50 in another field.
And I'd also like to add too that one of the things that might be missed right now is it doesn't matter what kind of hemp you're growing. This is a problem for you. So you're going for grain, you're going for fiber, you're going for cannabinoid production. Any of those items, you're going to face this issue, and your grain field, your fiber field can just as easily go over with, especially with bad genetics, to make it be destroyed. So it's not just one area of this right now, it's all areas. So if you go over, you're over.
Now I see you've got a bud of hemp sitting in there, and how does it hang in there? Is it on a stick, or what is that?
So this is a pin, the top part like normal pin, and this is a magnet. So it sticks to the bottom of the bud, and the device is filled with magnets. As you can see, it just sticks to the top.
Oh,
and the only thing that you have to do is push it down.
Okay.
And there's an app where you just press analyze, and it does it in 5 minutes. You don't have to do anything. And the device self-calibrates automatically before each test to ensure accuracy for each individual analysis. And then your flower is intact.
I can sure tell you that I wish more things attached with magnets. I was just working on my tractor yesterday. I was like, holy crap, this is a lot of work. I was like, magnets will solve this.
They do. Like, see, right now, it's just stuck to the top with magnets. It, like, this upper part has a bunch of magnets around, so it just sticks.
Works in outer space.
It could.
It could.
Maybe.
It could work in outer space. Well, when we get the first International Space Station hemp project going, we'll make sure that we have a Gemmacert on board. So,
I'm calling NASA right now.
Yeah, call that. We don't want those guys coming up. We don't want those feds coming up there and destroying our crops.
Yeah.
And speaking about outer space, did you know that the main technology that we use is also used by the NASA to discover deep space planets?
I did not. So tell us about that.
So basically, the technology that we use is near-infrared spectroscopy. Spectroscopy is a science that analyzes light in simple terms. So the way this is used for outer space planets is that they can measure every single wavelength of light that is striking the Earth, and they can see changes to it. So as you've probably seen that stars blink out in outer space. That is just the light having intermittent hiccups. What they do in NASA is that for each one of those hiccups, it could be a planet going by, and they can analyze a bunch of stuff from near infrared. What we do with near infrared is we target two specific molecules, which is THC and CBD, during the analysis. So we basically scan the entirety of the flower and pass that through about 3 to 4 machine learning algorithms that then are able to analyze the data and give you an interpreted result.
And how did this all start? I mean, somebody had a dream one night, or where did the idea of using that technology to figure out the contents of chemicals in a green plant go back in time? Where did this all start?
Perfect. So this actually started as a research project in the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. The main premise of the research project was to answer a simple hypothesis. Are trichomes in cannabis heterogeneous or homogeneous? Meaning, are they spread equally or unevenly throughout the plant? We developed an image analysis algorithm, basically like an algorithm that sees an image and is able to graph out and make inferences from it, that was targeted at measuring the distribution of the trichomes. And what we found is that they're not spread equally. So then the next premise of the research project was, how can we accurately analyze a sample that is not spread equally throughout the entirety of the plant and a single flower without having to destroy the flower? And that's how we came down to a combination of 4 technologies. The first one, obviously, near infrared. The second one is image analysis that I explained before. The next one is data analysis. And the last one is robotics. So inside this device, there is basically like a robot arm with 3 axes that allow it to move around and take samples from the entirety of the plant without having to destroy it.
Wow. So there's lots of stuff packed into this little.
Yeah, it's deceiving because it looks so simple, but there is a lot of hard science.
And then does the device, is that connected back home to the mothership, or is your cell phone connected back home to the mothership, or what do you need to make it work?
That's a great question. So in order to connect to the device, you need the app on your smartphone. Once you download the app, your phone is connected to the internet. And we basically have 2 servers, one in North America and one in Europe, where we store the machine learning algorithm and where we run it. So when you do a test, it gets connected to the cloud, and then the information, the interpreted information, comes back to your phone and the customer portal, where you can see all your results in an Excel table. It does not record your location, so it wouldn't know where you're testing. The only thing that we care about is measuring the product.
And what comes back then? Just 2 numbers, or do you get a chart? Or tell me what I would expect to see back.
One data point is basically the THC and the CBD percentage.
Okay.
The device ID, basically the identifier for each unit, and a timestamp, meaning when was this taken, when this specific test, and a flower ID that is unique for each individual test that is conducted. Okay. In addition to these data points, you're able to input more information, such as what batch did this come from, or what variety is it, or who was the supplier, or any other comments that you may have. And this is for you or your farmers to be able to create their own testing protocol and data analysis. So for instance, if you would like to analyze or conduct A/B testing, you would like to see what is the impact of using 2 different nutrients on the same genetic. You can now do it because you can test flowers from a lot of flowers from one genetic and the other genetic. Genetic in this case meaning variety. And you're able to export all that data and just graph it out in Excel.
Very similar to many of you that are out there farming this. You rely on the farm data for your corn and whether it be water management or pesticides or any other chemicals. Very much the same principles. So it's not far off. And as we're learning more about this and working with Gemmacert, it's becoming more and more to a point where you can actually rely on your own data to predict what's going to happen next year. And I found that very interesting in that if you are focusing on a single cultivar, the more information you feed the system, the better it is at working with your own cultivar. And especially if you're working hand in hand with Gemmacert to share your test results, because there's always going to be a need for a larger lab for the final tests or the state's doing. I mean, they're going to depend on their own results, but it's just something to think of is like, well, the longer you work with this company, the better they are to be at serving you. And I've always liked that. And then also too, I mean, as you're going through and testing these various products, they do have a COA system that you can generate your own reports that's been accredited by the equivalent of the ISO association, but for Israel and beyond. I'm sure they're working on more, and but this is kind of just really an incredible device that will grow with you.
Thank you for your kind words.
What's the future? You must hear a little tickles coming out of the other side of the globe. What do you hear? What's coming down the pike? What can you share with us?
Great. So basically, if you've read the literature on the current research for cannabis and hemp medicine, it is mainly conducted with extracts. The reason for this is because in order to do research and be able to quantify the effectiveness of a specific product for benefits or harms, you need a standard unit dose for that active molecule. The problem with flowers is that they're heterogeneous. They're spread unevenly throughout the flower. What we're able to do is create a specific fingerprint that we can then use to correlate to either a effectiveness of therapeutics or the opposite, or harms. And this way we can personalize cannabis treatment for patients around the world and advance science at the same time.
Wow. And we hear over here that Israel is kilometers. I know you guys are they're in, not you, well, you up in Canada too, you're all in kilometers, but you're kilometers ahead of us in research and trying to put medicine together with what might be hidden in all of the hemp plants that we have kind of ignored for about 70 years.
Yes. And the thing is, it's not really that advanced because the plant itself is an extremely complex plant.
Right.
So if you grow it in Israel and then you grow the same genetic in the US, you will get 2 different results. Because the plant is extremely plastic.
Okay.
So which means that it can adapt and mutate to adjust to its current environment. That's why you need to purchase seeds that you know work for your specific region. And you can also go test flowers from your seed provider prior to making a purchase, just to ensure that they're within the legal threshold and that they're reaching your CBD target. If you're in the CBD business, if you're in the industrial hemp business, you want to ensure that they're under the legal threshold, so you don't have to worry about intensive quality control.
Yeah.
Which is kind of really hard in 100 acres. Which is why we need technology, especially automated technology, to do a lot of the workload for us.
I'd agree with that. I mean, what some of the research that we've been doing ourselves and want to continue on, obviously it's going to take more partnerships and things with that with time, but it's a real big question out there. So just because you can source your seeds from somewhere, whether it be local or importing from other countries, how can you even guarantee that one section of your field is going to be the same as the exact opposite corner of it, as far as biology in the soil or chemicals or water or some things of that nature? You don't know what you're going to get at the end just because they had that experience where they grew the seed. So it's kind of this huge big question mark that's been over my head too for a long time, is like, well, how can you expect the same results, but then how do you carry forward once you know what to expect to make it more and more precise? So definitely love that angle.
Well, you guys are really good at using the data. I'm really proud of you guys.
That's because you got an IT guy sitting here that his day job is manipulating terabytes now, or petabytes. Have you got up to petabytes yet, Casey?
Not quite yet.
But
only
certainly
in my brain.
But terabytes, of data for his daytime clients, and so it's all about the data. I hear him say that so many times that I just want to go out and get on a tractor sometimes, and just touch the dirt and get it under my fingernails. But because of that, that's what's led us to all of these things that you're talking about here.
Well, that's what you do when you don't want to think about the data anymore.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, it's everywhere. There's so much more information there than's ever taken advantage of, and I'm all for that. There's just so much there in an industry. Instead of worrying about losing information and experience that's leaving your industry, I mean, we're in one that has a huge 70-year gap where you're just as well off reading George Washington's journals as you are searching the internet for information. So what do you have left? Well, you have life, you have real world experience, you have what happens, and you track it and you remember it, and then you use it forever to inform you. And in my opinion, it's just as good as learning from the wisest person in the world.
Well, or at least the second wisest.
Or the second.
Well, Emilio, we hope that you will be on with us, kind of on a regular basis, and any new updates, of course, to the Gemmacert family of products. Right now, I think we should touch on the fact that we can test the bud like you have there. Then also you can test with the other device. You can grind up and take like grindings, and that goes in that. And then you have a third device that we touched on just a little bit, where you can take the product after it's been extracted with ethanol, and that's where you're talking about dosing, because that's where you're in a product then that's been through ethanol extraction, and you can also test for what's in that. Am I right about that?
Yep, absolutely. So you're absolutely right about that. So basically, this is the holder for biomass, for instance. It opens on the back over there. You put your product, you put it in, and the testing process is exactly the same. And it also takes 5 minutes, and you can test your sample as many times as you want. The point you touch on extracts is super key, specifically in regards to the standard unit dose, because you can control the levels of chemicals in your extracts as long as you know what they are prior to extraction. So if you're able to test your biomass or your flowers before extraction, you can tune your process and your operations to maximize the extraction efficiency for that specific run based on the chemical composition of the raw material that you have.
Wow. Lots of information. You know, I kind of knew all this stuff, and yet when you tell it in your words, I absorb it all over again, and it empowers me to understand exactly what goes on in that machine. And it's been wonderful. Casey, any final thoughts here before we say goodbye on this Thursday?
Really, I think we hit on all of it today. Definitely out there. It's just kind of put in front of you, you know, regardless of who you go with. We've worked with Gemmacert, but you're not locked into having to wait for the lab. There are options out there, and we would always recommend that you rely on the data. And Gemmacert's unique in that it's been out to the market, it's been tested in various ways, and it has multiple testing paths for you to kind of move forward, whether it be that you want to know that your field's going to go over, but then also, you know, just like your content in general, like how much CBD is in there, and track it with time, and maybe you'll find that there's just that perfect time of the year to harvest your crop and move forward, or make sure your production process is just okay as you do spot tests or things along the way you don't want to wait for. So it's just an amazing option out there that we can take some of this into our own hands. And I know a lot of of you out there would rather do it yourselves if you could.
Emilio, we always give our guests the almost final word before we say goodbye. So this is your moment.
First of all, I wanted to thank you guys for having me here. On the second note, cannabis and hemp is an agricultural crop that is very different from all other crops, but it's also a very rewarding plant, because not only do you see the commercial value in it, you really get attached to it. It's unique, it requires intensive care, but it really communicates to you. And on the third note, hemp on.
Hemp on. We got to get bumper stickers made. I can see that. I can see that. All right. We will say goodbye to Emilio. And that is it for our Thursday show. Casey, thank you for joining us. Monday, of course, we'll have a Have You Heard, HURD, little twist on words, but a fun update on what's going on in the hemp world here in the Midwest. And of course, Tuesday, another exciting guest coming your way. Until then, we hope everyone has a great weekend. And what did he say? Hemp on. Is that the new? That's the new phrase. So hemp on, everybody. All right. See you.